So we have Jonathan here, jumping right into it, surprise. You're in the French Resistance, but you also have a unique take on your impression, though.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So I'm portraying a Polish Maquis member, basically a Polish member of the Resistance, who kind of joined up with the French Resistance around 1944 in May, but prior to that, they had their own resistance networks in France like they did in Poland.
So how did you first get started with this specific impression?
I started this impression probably around 2017. I was really interested in the citizen soldier fighting back against a conqueror, essentially. So I looked into, events around where I lived and went to Reading, Pennsylvania for the first one, and then met up with all these awesome guys here in Conneaut, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
How did you first go about researching your kit and portrayal, and then go from there? Like, how do you continue researching it and growing it?
So the first thing I did is I talked to a lot of people who had been reenacting already, and I got book suggestions from them. And then I would also go on to newsreels that I could find that would show life, even though it was post, Allied landing, it would still show kind of like the day-to-day operations of the Maquis, what they were wearing, what equipment they used, and basically just how they acted when they were getting ready for operations.
Are there any books, archives? You already just touched on that in the previous question, but anything else you would add to that? Even if it's just general reading.
So my suggestion that I learned way too late was to go into French and Polish websites and just translate them to English, and that's where the best information is. Then eBay France and eBay Poland works great for finding stuff to use.
What's the most challenging part of your kit to find, and how'd you go about finding that?
Honestly, the most challenging part was probably the actual clothing they would wear, because their style is a lot different from, say, an American or an English person would wear. It was more workwear, it was more, baggier pants, tighter waists, that sort of thing. And finding originals is really difficult too now.
That probably ties back to where you're talking like eBay France and all that.
Yep, eBay France, eBay Poland. There's a plethora of thrift shops now that deal in just French workwear or Polish workwear, and that's where I go first before branching out to other websites.
Any magazines from those countries that you're aware of that show their clothing?
Not really. Anything that I found from that time period, because they were making underground newspapers essentially, you can kind of pick pieces out of it about day-to-day lives, what the Resistance was doing or what they could do, but nothing with pictures, unfortunately. That was after the Allies landed with their newsreels and everything.
So what advice would you give someone who is looking at getting to this impression? What's your nugget of wisdom?
Be open to criticism. I mean, it's very difficult to start out and be 100% right off the bat, so just be open to changes and advice from people who've been doing it forever.
The past 2 years we've had some pretty nasty weather, closer to probably would have been historically on June 6th.
Yes.
So anything, number one, from a reenactor that you've learned as far as your kit to better prepare for something like that?
Okay, so basically I will talk about shelters though. I have found that shelters closer to the ground and wider out bear the brunt of the wind and the rain better. For that storm that we had 2 years ago, I was in that pup tent and I was fine.
Okay.
I did not get wet at all. And floors that kind of go up and in on your tent, so they cover the inside. If you don't have a floor in your tent, just a ground cloth that's bigger than the inside, so you can roll it up.
Anything you do for period rain gear? I feel like that's a hard thing to source or come up with solutions.
Yeah, period rain gear, I would say, is mostly military. You can do some treatments, but I haven't really looked into that as much, so I basically just use a British rain cape or a French shelter half as a rain cape.
And then I have also a question I want to ask you about your beret. You have something on your beret. Can you tell me what that is?
So this is the Polish eagle, and it was pretty famous as far as Polish insignia goes. You'll see it on everything. You'll see the eagle on equipment, on berets, on hats, and everything. And I just wanted to kind of wear that to represent who I was portraying.
Okay, and what is your standard firearm? Everyone likes that.
My standard firearm, I think, currently is the Lee Enfield No. 4 Mark I. It's the best rifle I've handled.
Any insights also for behind-the-scenes scoop on being a reenactor, or maybe it could be even a tip that would help people looking at getting to the hobby?
Right, so you have to remember what we're doing and why we're doing it. And on the battlefield, you can get caught up in the moment. It can be heavy. There are hokey things, but just remember that people really died doing this sort of thing. We're just portraying that to the best of our ability.
Any other like points or anything you want to like highlight or share at this point?
Do reenacting if you can. It's the best. Best hobby there is.
I think that's a great way to end. Thank you, Jonathan.
Got it.